uh, viewing this on the web that are signed in as attendees, which means that you can only see the event and not participate. If that is the case, ask that you call into the phone number that was also attached to the invitation to present, provided by our board secretary, and you'll be able to participate via the phone if you are having problems logging in to the actual system.
Good morning. This is Bradley Blumenscheid. We're the market manager.
Okay, great. And how are you connected to us right now? Is it are you just on the web?
Okay. For some reason, it started working on my computer.
You just faded on us. Mr. Blumenscheid, you faded on us.
Sorry about that. I'm now seeing the video. I'm not able to get my video to work for some reason. We've tried on 3 different computers.
All right. So what are our options here, Paul?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah. Yes.
He is entered by phone. He must be watching as an attendee. Just so you're aware, he is not in through his computer except to watch as an attendee. He was admitted by phone. So he'll need to mute he's going to be about 10 seconds behind on his computer.
Right now he doesn't have video stream though, he said.
That is correct.
Oh.
Well,
he does, but all he could do is watch, and it's a 10-second delay.
Yeah, I can see the video, and there is a delay. So I just have my computer muted, and I'll just use the phone to communicate, if that's okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right, very good.
I apologize for being late. We've been trying for about 20 minutes to log in.
No, we understand that the technology challenges that we all face from time to time. Monday we had hearings, and 2 of our board members were having difficulty accessing it, and I have in the past as well. So, all right.
I think we need to get some grandchildren on call to be able to help everybody.
All right, I'm going to start the hearings, assuming we have Sam available for us. Sam, you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay, very good. Let the record reflect it is Wednesday, February 24th, 2021, and the board is convened to consider its agenda today. And our first case that we have was scheduled for 8:30. It's a few minutes after 8:30. It's a Division of Industrial Compliance case, and it's case number 21-0015. And it deals with the premises located at 500 East Center Street, located in Marion, and the division's adjudication number that's being appealed is noted on our docket sheet and agenda. Mr. Blumenscheid, would you state your full name, spell your last name for the record, and then indicate the capacity by which you're here representing the appellant? We'll do the same thing with the building and fire official. And we'll have an oath administered, and we'll get started.
Okay, my name's Bradley Blumenscheid, BLUMENSHEID. I am with Rhythm Architecture and Design. I am the architect for the project.
Mr. Eaton.
Good morning, Jeff Eaton with the State of Ohio, Chief Building Official with the Division of Industrial Compliance.
And Captain?
Captain Mike Mikowski, City of Marion Fire Inspector.
Okay, if each of you would stand, raise your right hand. Sam, would you do the honor of administering the oath?
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Okay. Now, one of our board members who is also a lawyer has a hearing, a court proceeding at 9. Chip, you're going to have to pop off at 9, correct? All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Blumenscheid and Mr. Eaton and Captain Mikowski, in the event that we lose Mr. Welch for a while and he's unable to deliberate, that means we'd be proceeding through this process through a board of 4 rather than a board of 5. Does anyone object to that?
No.
No,
No.
sir.
Okay. Jeff, you said no, sir, or yes, sir?
No, sir. No objections.
Okay, and Mr. Blumenscheid said the same, and Captain Mikowski. Okay, so we will proceed. We have a memo that is provided to us on division cases, and it looks like items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are all in play in appeal. Is that correct, Mr. Blumenscheid?
Sort of.
Okay. Well, then go ahead. We've started hearing. You have the floor.
So we inherited this project from a architect who passed away. It was in the middle of going through the permit process, and the owner had contacted us to sort of take over. So we received a correction letter from the plans examiner, Sudhir, and we responded to that correction letter, and upon further analysis, we realized that the building should be classified as an R3 use instead of an R2 use. We had a lot of back and forth conversations with the plans examiner, and I believe Sudhir talked to Mr. Eaton about the change of use. And essentially, they said that they can't review it as an R3, and we would have to bring it before the board to be reviewed as an R3. If it is an R3, the bulk of these correction letter items go away as they are not applicable, and only 3 items remain. So it's a bit of a weird case because we couldn't submit as an R3 to get an adjudication order for just the items under an R3. Some of these items are applicable and some of them aren't as an R3. So it's a little strange case.
Okay, questions of Mr. Blumenscheid by a member of the board at this point in time?
So I have a lot of questions, Mr. Chair. This is Paul Megan. First question has to do with, I saw the photos that were submitted here. It does look like there are some other non-residential uses in this building. Is that correct?
Yes, there is an office, so it is an unseparated mixed use, and we've taken the entire building essentially as an R3, therefore, since it's a higher hazard group.
Okay, and then I'm noticing also from the photos that you don't have any egress windows from the bedrooms or sleeping units, however you want to define them. Can you explain that?
Correct. So this used to be an office building built mid-century. In the individual offices, that's one of the correction letter items that we will have to address. So if we are allowed to submit this as an R3, on the latest correction letter, item 4, 5, and 6 are still applicable under an R3. So that's the means of egress through the window. Well, actually, we don't need number 5 because accessible sleeping units doesn't apply to an R3. And number 6, we need a sprinkler system, which we've talked to Chief Mikowski to put in a 13D system and not have to put in the egress windows into the individual bedrooms. So we were going to resubmit this as an R3 in December, but we were told not to, so that's why we're here, and it's a little confusing. We had some conversations with folks at the state to try to figure out how to get this taken care of and adjudicated in the proper way so you guys can respond and know what you're responding to. And we've had a lot of conflicting information sent our way.
Okay, that's enough questions for now.
Okay.
For me, at least.
Right. Any other questions of Mr. Blumenscheid? Okay. Let's hear from Mr. Eaton at this point.
I think I'm a little confused at this point now. I was pointing towards congregate living facilities. If there's less than 16 occupants, it would be an R3. If it's more than 16 occupants, it would be R2. I think when I first heard about this from Sudir, it was more of they were trying to classify it as a dwelling unit, which I didn't agree that it was a dwelling unit because of the shared facility. So it appears as congregate living. They're sharing showers, sharing restrooms. It's just a question of how many occupants are going to be in there for the sleeping rooms.
Questions of Mr. Eaton at this point?
No, I don't have any questions at this point. I guess I go back to the ultimate question, how many bodies are going to be in here?
And I think we need to have a better understanding too of the individuals that are staying here. Is there staff that is there? You know, what type of care is occurring in this facility?
Yeah, Mr. Blumenscheid, why don't you try to fill in some of the gaps for us on some of those details? And I will say that we do have the photographs and the drawings that our board secretary sent to us yesterday. So we have those in front of us.
Okay, great. So there are 13 bedrooms. So 13 residences. One of the residents is almost like an RA, so a resident advisor, who he kind of followed us around when we were doing our field inspection. The office at the back is staffed by the building owner during normal business hours, not 24 hours a day. So based on the occupancy of that individual office room, that's another 2. So maximum occupancy for the entire building is 15 with 13 bedrooms sharing facilities.
So what is the nature or status? I mean, the RA, let me ask the question, right? I mean, deciding between R3 and R4 is, you know, based on custodial care. Are these people under custodial care that would make it a R4 type situation? Or are these people literally free to come and go as they want? Tell us a little bit what's going on and what service is being provided here.
Sure. So they are free to come and go as they want. The RA is there basically to make sure nobody smokes inside the building, kind of thing. Each individual bedroom is rented out to individual or for basically a bed, and they have communal showers, communal restrooms, and so forth within the building that everybody shares. But they are free to come and go 24 hours a day. There's no assisted living or anything like that, which is how we landed on being an R3 and not an R4 use.
Okay, how do these how is the rent paid for these individuals?
It's monthly per room.
So it is there, let me ask this, is there any state or federal subsidies for these individuals?
No.
So this is literally just a straight up a monthly, month by month rent to people who just want to have a room.
Correct.
Does that require any licensure?
I think
It's not an SRO. It's a boarding house.
Okay.
I mean, what type of people live here? It looks like a dormitory actually, with sharing the showers and is there cooking going on here? Do they get their meals here?
There's no oven or range. They have a microwave and a refrigerator. The types of folks are older widowers or widows. They're, not kids or anything. I mean, they're retirees, and they don't want to take care of a big house, I suppose.
Hey, this is for the captain. Would this property be considered, would you do annual inspections like you would on motels?
My understanding is this is basically transient. There's no affiliation with universities or anything like that. For some reason, it seems like Marion, we've been getting a lot of these sleeping room occupancies, where people have been trying to open these. And it's literally just they come in and rent a room, and that's it. So no, I wouldn't necessarily have it flagged as a like a hotel or motel where I'd go in regularly. I have hard enough time keeping up with my required inspections, but yeah, this is a very unusual building. As far as the calling it, I'll leave that up to your guys' wisdom. What our classification, I do not believe it would fall as an R4, because in my opinion, my understanding, there's no care or custodial issues being given there. But I want a sprinkler system, and they've agreed to put that in. And at least, well, obviously the fire alarm system or sprinkler system would have to be monitored. So that's my biggest thing. I want to make sure we have a sprinkler system. The rest of that, I leave to you guys, because it's a difficult case.
Okay, Brad, I sort of jumped in there, and I'm not sure you were finished.
I mean, I guess I don't know, is there a difference between if people stay more than 30 days and less than 30 days of what this is classified as? And I guess this would be more than 30 days? Is that, I guess that's a question for Jeff, maybe, a code question? Does that make a difference in this classification?
Absolutely. If there's more than 10 people there and it's transient, it's not an R3. It tends to be more of an R1, which is the hotel motel classification. So if this isn't meant to be their permanent residence, it's transient, which changes the whole scope of the code approach.
Would you re-adjudicate this under those kind of circumstances?
It's
talking about you as opposed to us, obviously.
Yeah, if that's how it's going to be occupied and intended to be occupied, then R3 and R2 aren't applicable. It's more of an R1 if it's transient occupancies. But if they're there, they're considered their permanent residence, their mail's going to come there, then it's non-transient, which would be more the congregate living facilities, almost like a fraternity sorority house.
I mean, what are this is really for Mr. Blumenscheid and Mr. Eaton or members of the board. What's our end game here? What could we do based on this record that we have in front of us right now?
From my standpoint, I'm not comfortable really going forward until we can nail down what this should be classified.
So I think, can I interject real quick? I think Mr. Mikowski misspoke when he said it was transient. It's non-transient. These are their permanent addresses. They get mail there. I think the primary reason that they want these is so they have an address for jobs. And this will be their permanent residence. It's not something that they're going to move in for a week in like an extended stay hotel or something like that. These are their permanent residence and their permanent addresses.
Yeah, what actually defines it as transient? Do they have to have a lease in place?
Correct. That there used to be the 30-day language in the code, but they took that out. It's more the intended, the length of stay and residency. So yeah, if they're signing a lease, that's considered non-transient.
Right. Which they are signing a lease to rent out these bedrooms.
And are these, and how, give me some idea of what the lease terms are in terms of tenure and longevity.
I do not have access to the lease. The owner told me that they're all leases. Unfortunately, the owner is out of town. They are on this call. I don't know if we can interject.
Well, if yeah, I know we have one. Alicia, who do we have on the phone?
Alyssa Purvis.
Alyssa. I'll let you answer that. I have to swear you in. If you can add some color or insight to that. But state your full name and spell your last name, please.
It's Alyssa Purvis. It's Purvis.
Got it. Okay. And would you, wherever you are, would you stand, raise your right hand? Sam, would you administer an oath?
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Ms. Purvis, do you have any insight to the questions in terms of what the lease terms look like?
They're just a month-to-month, 30-day lease that's signed. You know, whenever they move in, it's just a 30-day lease, and it just renews. You know, unless they give a 30-day notice or they move out, then it just is month-to-month for them.
So Jeff, is just based on, I mean, that may be a 10,000-foot statement, but does that make it non-transient?
Yes, that would be non-transient.
Okay. Well, we're sort of in a free-for-all here, but any member of the board have questions or comments at this point in time for any of the parties?
So let me understand a little bit too. I mean, the way that the R3 was set up to be done in this type of a situation is really allow for things like group homes to happen, right? Where, you know, the people are, it's a house and the people are living there and there's cooking facilities and everything. This, I mean, without cooking facilities, it's hard for me to say that, yeah, this is a house. This is similar to what a group home or something like that would be. You know, it is just a room. They don't, you know, other than sleeping and bathing there, they're not doing anything. You know, there's no living room, there's no kitchen, they're not cooking there. So to me, it's hard for me to say it needs to go in an R3. Maybe what we need to do, Mr. Chair, is let's continue this out. Let the architect interact a little bit more with Mr. Eaton's group and have some more discussion so that, you know, at least from Jeff's perspective, he could say, here's what I think it is. Because I don't think we're even at that point yet. And I don't know if we can necessarily decide that without Jeff's input.
I agree 100%. I think we're ahead of ourselves here, unfortunately. But Mr. Blumenscheid, do you understand the predicament and what Mr. Keegan just said and the need to maybe kick this out and let you huddle with the division?
Yeah, I completely understand. And we've been having these conversations, and even now talking it through, it seems like there's a lot of miscommunications. And I've spoken with Alyssa and with Mr. Mikowski and Sudhir at length, trying to figure out how to get this in the right category and get the proper things in front of everyone. And it just seems like everyone has difference of opinions. So I think continuing it isn't a bad idea. I think that would really help clarify things for everyone and get everyone on the same page. So I am not opposed to that.
Captain, you're not opposed to that, are you?
No, sir. Yeah, and I wasn't aware of the change in the definition of the transient. I was still going on the 30-day.
Okay. Well, I let Neil and Brad kicking this out and letting this, let them regroup. Is any objection to that?
No, I believe a continuance is in order.
Yeah, it would be, that's a good idea. Let them hammer it out.
Okay. Okay, and we lost Chip Welch. He did jump off for his court hearing. Do any one of the board members want to move to continue this matter?
So moved for continuance, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Sam, that's Neil Gehring that moved in that regard. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Brad. All those in favor of continuing this matter, say aye.
Aye.
Right.
Any opposed? Okay, by a 4-0 vote, we're going to continue this matter, Mr. Blumenscheid. I'll let you have the last word, or Mr. Eaton or Captain, anything further to put on the record at this point in time?
No, I appreciate this. I appreciate you guys listening and talking through this with us, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Okay, very good. I appreciate it. The matter is continued. Is there any need for a break at this point in time?
No, Mr. Chair, this is Paul Began. I did want to let the captain know that the fire code may have a difference in definition between what the building code has. So there may be differences in the definition of transient on that 30 days based on the fire code. So
Thank you. I'm always learning from you guys. It never stops.
Likewise.
Okay, very good. The matter is continued, and hopefully the parties can get together and move this forward in a stream of commerce, which we like to see. We'll move on then to our second case. I think we have the parties. I know we have the parties. It's 9:04. It was set for 9. This also is a Division of Industrial Compliance case. It's 21-0017. And it deals with premises located at 2255 Kenny Road, Ohio State University property, and the division's adjudication number is noted on the docket. Let's have an introduction of the parties, beginning with Mr. Jordan and then Mr. Flaherty, and then we'll do the same with the building official.
Yeah, my name is Rick Jordan. I'm the architect with Moody Nolan Architects. We're the architect of record for the project.
Thank you. Mr. Flaherty?
Yeah, good morning. My name's Brendan Flaherty. I'm the project manager for Ohio State University.
Jeff?
Jeff Eaton, EATON, Chief Building Official for the Division of Industrial Compliance.
Okay, and are you on behalf of the division today?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, if Mr. Jordan and Mr. Flaherty and Jeff, if you as well would stand, raise your right hand. Sam, would you administer the oath?
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Okay, and based on the memo that we received from the division, it looks like just item 1 is in play. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Mr. Jordan or Mr. Flaherty, you have the floor.
I think, first of all, the project is a research center, interdisciplinary research center facility at the Ohio State University. So the number one main concern is security of our building for the research that's being done there. And therefore, we requested card readers on the inside or the re-entry side of the stairwell doors. And as you know, we fall within a gap in the building code, the current 2017 OBC. We're not a high rise, but we are a 5-story building. So if we were a 4-story building, we could place card readers in the stairwell. But we are a 5-story, but not a high rise. So we do not have a command center, but what we have done is placed a remote switch that releases those card readers, keeps the doors latched, but releases the doors in the case of an emergency. And this release switch is at the remote fire enunciator panel where the fire department enters the building. So we have complied with the unadopted 2018 IBC building code. And we have complied with OBC 2017, but because we are a 5-story building, it doesn't apply to our building. So we're asking for relief of the card readers because we don't apply with the current building code, Ohio building code. But again, security, the research, every floor has either 2 or 3 research laboratories with supporting lab facilities and staff, scientists, offices surrounding those laboratories. So the security of the research is paramount here for the building owner.
I should have gotten a waiver, I think, or a consent to move forward. I know, Mr. Jordan, you were on earlier. I'm not sure about Mr. Flaherty, and Jeff was as well, but Chip Welch is our fire official representative on the board, but he also has a law degree and practices law, and he had a court hearing at 9. So we're proceeding in front of a board of 4. Mr. Jordan, I assume you have no objection to that?
I do not.
Okay, and Mr. Eaton?
No objections. Thank you.
Okay, questions by members of the board at this point in time of Mr. Jordan? Hearing no questions of Mr. Jordan. Oh, go ahead.
I have a question, Carl. Regards to the release button, you say it's at the enunciator panel. Where exactly is that located in the facility?
It's located at so the plan that you are looking at right now is the west half of the building. The east half of the building, which you don't see, it's to your right. There is a on-grade access where the standpipe, the exterior Siamese fire department connection is, and where we had a preliminary site plan with the fire department. And so they would enter at the southeast adjacent to the stairwell, and that's where we decided to locate the remote fire enunciator panel. And that switch for release is within that panel. It's
so who has access to that?
The fire department.
Only, correct?
I guess anyone else that would have a key to that panel could access that panel.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question. If so, is the main purpose here is when people get in the stairway, if they're on the first floor, you don't want them going up to the 3rd floor and just walking through and having access to the floor? Is that why the security?
Correct.
Yes.
So is the main concern is that the fire department gets in the stairwell, they can't get access to the floor if the door is locked? Because if there's an emergency, people are going to be going down the stairway, not trying to go in the building. Is that the concern?
Well, there is, I think, one of the reasons that the building code has been written, why it has been written, is if the stairwell was ever compromised during an emergency, then you could re-enter another floor. But we have the card readers connected to the fire alarm. So if there is an emergency, the doors will, you will be able to re-entry a floor if there is an emergency. And the card readers are also connected to the emergency generator. So if there's a loss of power, you can re-enter on a floor also.
So by emergency, you're only talking about a fire emergency.
Correct, unless someone comes to the fire annunciator panel and releases the switch for the card readers.
So if there was like an active shooting situation, it would not apply.
If there was an active shooter within the stairwell,
Or on the floors where people were trying to get to a different floor.
well, you can always egress through the stair to get into the stairwell. That's
right. But once you're in the stairwell, you have to go to the ground level, correct? You can't egress. You cannot enter a different level.
That is correct, unless it is mandatory, and I can let the owner speak to this, but it's mandatory to always have your ID, which is the card swipe for the card reader, on you at all times.
Yeah, I can talk about that for a second. Yeah, so yeah, to get into the building, the only public space we really have is the front lobby on the first floor. All the other entry into the building is with a card swipes, and everybody at Ohio State wears your card ID. And then we grant permission to access floors. So yeah, so conceivably, if you are working in the building and you have permission to be on level 4, and you want to go see your friend on level 2, you need to have permission to go down and swipe to get into level 2. In general, that's pretty much how we will set up the security. So if you are in the stairwell and you're, let's say you're a guest, you'd have to exit the building. You'd have to be escorted, really, is how things will work, to get anywhere in the building outside of the front lobby.
Does this building have elevators? I can't see one.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess it does. Okay.
Yeah, we got 3 right there. We're looking at the second floor level here.
Right.
So the second, third, fourth, and fifth levels are basically the footprint's identical with our lab spaces. And then there's a elevator on the other half of the building on the lower right. So I think our main request is we'd like to control, access from somebody getting into the stairwell and just entering another level, a lab level, and walking around. Or, the other nice thing about the card readers is you get a record of who swiped to come onto the floor. Also, that's an additional. So if it's 10 o'clock at night and you swiped in from the stairwell, we have a record of who's entering the floor.
Do you limit access to individuals with your card readers?
Oh, yes.
Do they all have 24/7 access, or is it determined by their work schedule?
Yes, you know what? That's a great question. As far as I know, you can enter a time that the cards will work. That's a good question.
I understand for whatever reason we didn't issue notice of the hearing to the Columbus Fire Department, what kind of engagement, Mr. Jordan or Mr. Flaherty, have you had with Columbus Fire?
I have a little information. So through Bob Armstrong, campus security, he got back to me yesterday afternoon at 5:30. He just spoke to Lieutenant Fowler. He needs to run this info by one of the chiefs, which he will try to do first thing tomorrow morning. Nothing jumps out at him as being a huge concern, but the chief needs to review and comment. That's from 5:30 last night.
Well, it seems like this is really a fire department. We'd want to have their blessing on this, it would seem like.
Yes.
Let's hear from Mr. Eaton.
I did speak with Brendan last night. I apologize for the lateness of contacting Brendan. I mentioned the fire department, so I didn't give him much of a heads up to get their input. But Mr. Gehring brought up the same point I discussed with Brendan last night. What if it's a non-fire emergency? Active shooter. Our building's set up the same way. We're mandatory to carry badges. I've locked myself out of our secured areas more than I care to share on record, and had to go through the guard to get back in. But my concern I discussed with Brendan is if there is an active shooter on one, there's a panic. For whatever reason, people don't have their badge. It's laying on their desk. They run into the stairwell, realize that they don't have a badge. Now they're stuck. It's a dead end going up. They can't go down. I don't know if there's a way, and I discussed with Brendan last night the hours that the building are occupied. If it's occupied while there's staff at that public lobby, and if there's cameras in the stairwell or a way to communicate with the person that's constantly attending that location, and maybe there's a remote lease there that someone can call, say, hey, you need to hit, there's an issue in the stairway, and they can release the doors. I don't know if that's an option or if it's feasible, but I think a similar request came from one of the dorms at OSU where they wanted to restrict access to floors, maybe in more Lincoln Tower, but that's my only comment, I guess, similar to what Mr. Gehring brought up.
So Jeff, to repeat that, were you suggesting a release at the front desk as well? I think that's a great idea.
That if there's any of a non-fire issue that's not going to initiate the devices to release those doors, there should be some other means at a constantly attended location. If it's only occupied from 8 to 5 and there's someone there from 8 to 5, then there's a way to at least, if I don't have my badge, I'm not stuck. I can communicate with the desk. They can see who's in the stairway at the door and know they're an employee or not. Or if there's a panic situation, there's a way to release those doors.
Okay, let me ask my colleagues what their thoughts and sentiments are at this time before we get too far ahead of ourselves.
Well,
Mr. Chair, go ahead, Neil.
I have some concerns with what Jeff brought up about having a secondary release in a non-fire situation. I also have a concern because we have card readers in our facility too, but everybody's access times are contingent on what their work schedule is. But from time to time, people do work late, and then by virtue of how their card readers are set up, or their access codes are set up, they're locked out of different areas, like Jeff said. So I have a couple concerns, and I also would like to hear the input of the fire official.
Okay, Paul?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this is Paul Began. I would think that
Someone needs real quick. Sorry, someone needs to mute. There's some tapping noise. Okay.
Similar to Mr. Gehring, my big thing is the fire department. Assuming that the fire alarm is going off when they are there for whatever reason, that may not necessarily be the case. So, I mean, that's, want to make sure that they would be okay with this, because really there may be some minor inconvenience for people that, all right, they go out there and they forget their card. Well, they got to go all the way back down out and come back inside the building. That is less concerning to me as in, okay, that stairway needs to be used for some type of emergency purposes, whether it be fire, security, or other law enforcement, and those devices become an impediment for those people doing their jobs. So I don't know if we necessarily think we need to continue. I would be okay with adding a condition, a letter of no objection from the fire official.
Well, let me go back to Neil. Neil, would that be okay in your view, a letter of no objection, or is this something where you want to hear from Columbus Fire and ask them questions?
I could probably see my way to a letter of no objection, but I'd also like to see another release button down in the main lobby during occupied hours.
Mr. Flaherty, Mr. Jordan, any thoughts on what Mr. Gehring just said?
Does that release button release all the floors or just one floor?
I'm fine with releasing everything. So if we put a button at the front desk to just release the card readers for whatever reasons necessary, it's a great idea.
Neil, does that comport with what the condition you'd impose is?
Yeah, that would be fine with me. My only other question is, I see there's quite a few cameras here. Who are they monitored daily, or are they on more like a recorded?
I can answer the camera question. One, we do not have cameras located in the stairwells. We do have cameras on the floor locations. Basically, there's a camera within view of every hallway and lab opening, lobbies. The cameras are not monitored 24/7. They're more of, I would say, Ohio State's more of a forensic. It's recording things. Then they can go back and check. Now, all our cameras are tied to Blankenship Hall, so they would have the ability to access the cameras, but there's too many cameras on many buildings to be accessed 24/7.
Yeah, and that's, I kind of figured that. And I was just curious on the cameras, but I would be fine with that other condition, Paul, and a letter from the fire official and Carl.
Okay, thank you. Brad, how about your thoughts, comments, or questions, if you have any?
You're right. I agree with what Neil said. I do have a question though. Are there fire alarms in the that you can set off in the stairwells? I assume there are.
Well, there's a pull station outside of the stairwell, but not inside.
Oh, I was gonna say, if somebody was in there, they could pull that and it would open the doors, I guess. But,
It's on the other side of the door, I believe.
Correct.
okay.
It's on the side where the camera can see who pulled the alarm.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, so Brad, you'd be comfortable with a letter of no objection from Columbus
Yes.
Fire?
Yeah.
Okay, so would I. Anything further, Mr. Eden? Jeff, do you have anything further?
No, we can work with Brendan's group. There's probably some logistics we can discuss as a sidebar to this, but I think they want to definitely confirm who's in the stairway asking to be let in. So if there's no camera there, you don't want the person that's got threat to be in the stairway and have them push the button to release it.
Are those sidebar conversations?
Yeah, that's stuff we can work out, but
Are those an impediment to us moving forward today?
no, sir.
Okay. Mr. Flaherty, Mr. Jordan, anything further?
No, thank you guys.
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, Paul, do you need some time?
I put up on the screen for those of you that are watching separately and talking on the phone, there's about a 10-second delay, but they will show up there. Mr. Chair, the proposed conditions are as follows. Variances conditioned on the following. Number one, electronic locking devices on the non-egress side of the stairwell doors in all 3 stairwells and at each floor shall release upon activation of the fire alarm system or via an emergency release button located on the fire alarm annunciator panel and at the security desk to the satisfaction of the building official. All stairwell doors must open unimpeded in the direction of egress travel. Number 2, a letter of no objection shall be submitted by the fire official to the Board of Building Appeals and the chief building official before the construction permit is issued. Number 3, this variance is granted based on the use, construction, occupant load, building area, and level of activity identified on the approved construction documents, including the maintenance of all building systems and any conditions required herein.
Mr. Flaherty, Mr. Jordan, Mr. Eaton, any comments or questions with regard to those proposed conditions?
No comments.
I have no comment.
I'm good with those as well.
Okay, Mr. Flaherty, Mr. Jordan, does no comment mean those are acceptable to you?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, very good. I would entertain a motion.
Yes, Mr. Chair, for Board of Building Appeals, case number 21-0017, the appellant is the Ohio State University for the premises building located at 2255 Kenny Road, Columbus, Ohio 43210. The appellee is Jeffrey Eaton, building official, Bureau of Building Code Compliance for the state of Ohio, and adjudication order number 2020-020337. I move to grant the variance subject to the conditions previously read in the record and noting the no objection of the chief building official.
Okay, that motion, is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chair.
Second's been made. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, gentlemen, the variance has been granted on those conditions by a 4-0 vote of this board. Again, our fire official member was not present for this hearing. Is there anything further to come in front of the board on this particular case?
No, thank you very much.
Okay, very good. That concludes that case. Let's take just a short restroom coffee break and we'll get back for our Fair Pavilion proceeding. Off the record, Cam.
Time is approximately 9:30. We're off the record.
Good morning, Randy. I'm sorry. Randy, you're muted.
Okay.
Good morning. Do you know if Tim, is it Macy, is attending?
Tim Massey, he represents
Massey.
the Cultural Society, but he won't be attending. I'll be speaking on his behalf though.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, it looks like we've got, well, we don't have Paul back yet, I don't think.
I'm here, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I think we have Brad, and we just don't have Chip, and I'll get the consent to move forward without him.
He's here now.
Chip
All
is?
right.
Oh, there he is. There he is. Did you avoid contempt in your show cause hearing?
Yes.
Okay, well, I don't need to do the waiver or the consent to move forward. Okay, let's go on the record. Sam, are you there? You are there. Very good. Let's call the last active case on our docket. It's case number 21-0020, and it deals with the pavilion facility for the junior fair at the Gallia County Fairgrounds. This is a Division of Industrial Compliance case, and the division's adjudication number that's been appealed is noted on the docket. Let's have an introduction of the parties, beginning with Mr. Breach, then Mr. Massey, if he's available. State your full name, spell your last name, and the representative capacity by which you're appearing on behalf of the appellant. We'll do the same thing with Mr. Eaton at the division. I'll have an oath administered and we'll begin.
Yes, I'm Randall Breach, B-R-E-E-C-H. I am the engineer of record on this project. I represent myself with Breach Engineering and the Fair Board and Agricultural Society in place of Mr. Massey, who cannot attend.
Okay, so did you say that there was another individual that would be appearing with you?
Yeah, he will not be appearing with me.
Okay, wait, Mr. Breach, are you the only one appearing then for the fairgrounds?
That is correct.
Understood. Very good. Mr. Eaton?
Good morning, Jeff Eaton, EATON, Chief Building Official with the Division of Industrial Compliance.
Okay, very good. If each of you gentlemen would raise your right hand. Sam, would you administer an oath?
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Okay, and it looks like just item 1 on the adjudication order has been teed up in front of us, correct, Mr. Eaton?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Breach, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. This project is a culmination of several projects along the way. The fair had 2 buildings constructed as small pavilions for junior fair activities, and then later decided that they wanted to make these all into one larger building because the state issued grants to most of our local fairgrounds, and the Fair Board took it upon themselves that this is what they wanted to do with that grant money, was join those two buildings together. One issue we have here is that the total square footage of this building now is 21,000 square feet. And since it is a utility use group and half of the building is a hybrid construction wherein everything is metal except for the roof purlins, which are treated wood, then we exceed the limit on square footage for having to install a sprinkler system. This location, where we also have a horse barn that is being finished up as we speak, was chosen, and the Fair Board was pushed into this because our existing fairground is in a floodplain and suffers a flood event every year, including the past year when floodwaters were 4 feet high inside the existing buildings. So the fair has been trying to relocate to higher ground. This is in a somewhat remote location from the actual fairgrounds. In fact, it is a quarter-mile drive to those fairgrounds and about half again that much to the nearest public road. And so there wasn't a whole lot of planning along the way. I was kind of brought in here after some of these things had already been started. And then they came to me with the knowledge that they did get approval on the grant to put this connector between the two existing buildings. But I guess my contention would be that this building, even in its entirety, though it is a high amount of square footage, it is open around the entire perimeter of the building. There are no walls on the building. And so as far as life safety, folks can get in and out at any point. And then most of the building, like I said, is of steel construction. And the way it turns out, you've got half the building that does have some wood in it, and this is the complete building. And then the other half that is all steel. There is no floor in the building. It will just be groomed earth. And the only use of this building, definitely for the near future anyway, is very occasional use for practice of the kids running their horses and other activities associated with having a nearby horse barn that is only used to keep the animals in for display during the 1-week annual county fair. So we are seeking this appeal. The fair literally has no funding to do anything more than what they got the grant for this year because of last year's situation with the COVID crisis. And so to put sprinklers into this building at $4 a square foot in itself would be a lot of money. And then the other perhaps bigger issue is the fact all they have is a 2-inch water line going through this area at this time that supplies the campground and related facilities. And so to get enough water back to this location for a sprinkler system would make it so that it might even be cheaper to do a pond and a pump situation, but they absolutely have no additional funding at this time to do this. But I would stress this building is to be used very, very little and in a very limited manner. There will be no major events held inside except for a place for the kids to exercise or practice for the annual fair.
Okay, questions of Mr. Breach? Who's the fire, what's the fire jurisdiction, and have they been consulted?
This is the city of Gallipolis, and as has been so for the last 3 months, they unexpectedly lost their long-term fire inspector, and the gentleman that took over is still being trained and preparing to take his test. Our fire chief actually works for the state fire marshal's office, but does not wish to render any opinions that could put them into any possible legal problems in the future. He said they'll go back to writing letters of approval once Jeremy completes his test successfully, and then he will take over and we will once again have an actual trained fire inspector for the city of Gallipolis and the surrounding areas.
Okay, any other questions of Mr. Breach?
Yeah, I have a question. So the only thing you're constructing is a 30-foot section of building that connects two buildings?
That is correct, and it is a metal building. Just right now, the 75-foot long pavilion that is there, this addition is proposed to being added onto by the same company using the same type of construction. And then the other part of the building that has the wood in it, which is half the overall area, is the part that does have just wood purlins in it, but also the rest of it is steel. So the concern for fire is negligible, and all we're adding as far as electrical is just a few convenience outlets and some LED lights for nighttime use.
And they're not warehousing animals in here like during the fair where you would put pens, would have, you know, different farm animals in there?
That is correct. They will be in the horse barn that is 50 feet away from this overall structure. That is set up with stalls and all those sorts of things to keep the animals in.
So this is just an area to exercise horses?
Pretty much so. They actually, we have a very strong horse club here in Gallaudet County, and that's probably the projects that most of the children's here locally is either horses or cattle, with the cattle being an extra money for college. So, and in fact, the horse barn was built with monies from the local DeWitt Center, whose grandkids have horses, and he funded that project, but he's not involved with this one.
You know, I mean, this is maybe it's a question for Jeff, but I mean, how big of a building can you build without going into, I guess you said it would be an assembly type, even if it, you know, if it's open. But I mean, this is like a pretty big building at this point, 21,000 square feet versus what, 5,500 for the livestock shelter type building that it's currently under. I mean, this thing begs to have a concert or something in here, doesn't it? I mean.
Yeah, as soon as you put a lid on it, that's what classifies the definition of fire area. So I toss this around, you know, is it any less safe? You've got two buildings 30 feet apart that have straw in it or booze for show during fair. They may even be using that 30-foot space for those same purposes. It just doesn't have a roof on it. So is it any less safe putting a lid over that 30 feet? It's all open-sided. Heat detection, you know, radarized detectors probably wouldn't be effective. 20-foot eave heights, there's no way to contain the heat. It's open-sided. So I really don't have any objections or any alternative things that would make it more safe than it already is. Maybe a condition that it remains open on all sides. Fire extinguishers, it's unsecured. They may disappear. You know, placing fire extinguishers while it's occupied, you know, I'll leave that up to the board, but I would say definitely the open-sided condition would be a condition I would recommend.
Okay, thank you.
While you've indicated that, Mr. Eaton, Mr. Breach, do you have any objections to what Mr. Eaton just proposed?
I think he's gone.
Did we lose him?
Yes.
Well, that's okay. Well, we'll see if he dials back in. Let's just stay on the record then. Let's if we could, do we have a motion to approve minutes from our hearings Monday, which is February 22nd?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, and Chip,
I'll abstain, Mr. Chair.
yeah, right, figured. So the minutes for February 24th been approved by a 4-0 vote of the board, noting that Chip Welch has abstained. He wasn't present during these hearings. Do we have a motion to approve compensation for our preparation and attendance at today's hearing?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, we stand to be compensated for our efforts today and predating today. Susan, can you tell, or Paul, you have the ability somehow to have eyes. We still don't
He's
look like.
back.
Yeah, we have Mr. Breach back.
I'm sorry I lost you with the problem on my end, but I got you back now.
That's okay. Very good. So it's seamless. We didn't talk about you other than that you had left, and we didn't discuss the case after you jumped off. We just took care of some other business. So were you able to hear Mr. Eaton before you got disconnected?
He was in the process of speaking. I didn't catch the last part.
Let's back up. Jeff, you want to sort of repeat what you indicated?
Sure, I just mentioned, Mr. Breach, that I didn't think it's any less safe having that lid over that 30-foot gap. They may be using that space right now. You know, you've got two buildings that's got hay in it or straw, potentially booze. I'm not sure how they use it, but just to use that space in between and putting a roof over it on an open-sided building with a 20-foot eave height, I don't see that as any less safe than it is before. And trying to use some type of alternate detection, a heat detection system, isn't going to be effective with, you know, an open purlin type construction, open air. But I did recommend a condition that it would remain open-sided on all sides, and then potentially fire extinguishers while it's occupied. But, you know, being that it's unsecured and open, they may disappear or not. But I would recommend definitely that it remain open-sided as a condition.
And I was asking you if you had a comment on that proposed condition, and that's when we found out, Mr. Breach, that you were not on any longer.
Sounds reasonable to me. And just so you know, this will be a 5-year project, bringing the rest of the buildings back to that location. And so all of the restrooms and any other enclosed buildings, everything else, they understand they're going to do one really big building in about 3 years, and it will have a lot of these things in it. And then we can, it will be sprinkled. And so this will be the end of these type things like this. Anything else we get into, I'm going to be working directly with the Fair Board to make sure correct decisions are being made on what to be done and help to move forward from here on out.
Questions or comments by members of the board, or the expression of their sentiments moving forward?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Paul Began, I think I would agree a condition on the openness. I don't necessarily think that we would need to add the fire extinguishers. Again, that's more of a security and maintenance thing that I think I would want the fire department to have that, tell them that they would need to do that. There's not any now. I agree with Jeff that it is not any less safe just because we're covering the opening between the two with a non-combustible structure. So I think with the condition to stay open, I would be okay. And again, I understand that we have a situation of a fire department in transition. I don't know if it would, you know, hamper asking for a letter of no objection from the fire official. I don't necessarily think that is something that has to be done for this. So.
Okay, thank you. Just on that, this is sort of a non sequitur, but Mr. Breach indicated that the chief also works at the State Fire Marshal's office. Is that common, Chip?
It's not uncommon, especially down in southern Ohio in the rural areas, that the employees of the State Fire Marshal's office, whether they be inspectors or whatnot, are volunteers or part-time employees with their local fire department. So it's not unheard of. But I agree with Paul. I mean, typically I'm, adamant that the fire official throw their 2 cents in, but I don't want to put, I don't think that there's a threat level with this particular structure that we can't look past that because of the potential conflict of interest for the fire chief. And so I agree. Let's just make sure that the contingency that it stays open-sided, and I'm fine with it.
Neil?
I'm fine with it.
Brad?
Yes, I'm fine with it.
Okay, I'm going to assume, Paul, you don't need any time.
No, Mr. Chair. Let me just make sure that I can get this up there. There we go.
You see that, Mr. Breach?
Yes.
Okay.
Fine with everything that says.
Yeah, the variance is conditioned on the following. Number one, the exterior perimeter of the structure shall remain open at all times. The installation of any temporary plastic or fabric panels or other permanent wall enclosures shall not be permitted. Number two, this variance is granted based on the use, construction, occupant load, building area, and level of activity identified on the approved construction documents, including the maintenance of all building systems and any conditions required herein.
So Mr. Breach agreed that those were fine. That you must be like a speed reader, like took it Evelyn. Of course.
Where's the beach, Dave?
All right, Jeff, are you okay with those?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion.
I think Chip's doing a motion today, aren't you, Chip?
Oh, let me find the language.
It's a little rusty.
Stand by. Oh, hell's bells.
Got to get your handbook out, Chip.
Yeah. I got to re-log into the darn page. Sorry.
You got out of the solitaire page.
Yes, Mr. Chair, for Board of Building Appeals case number 21-0020, the appellant is Gallia County Agricultural Society for the premises Gallia County Junior Fair Pavilion at 189 Jackson Pike, Gallipolis, Ohio 45631. The appellee is Jeffrey Eaton, building official for the Division of Industrial Compliance in the state of Ohio, and adjudication order number 20200225592. I move to grant the variance subject to the conditions previously read into the record and noting the no objection of the chief building official.
It is like riding a bike. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. The motion's been made. There's been a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, Mr. Breach, Mr. Eaton, the variance is granted on those two conditions. Is there anything further to come before the board on this case, Mr. Breach?
I don't believe so, and I thank you all for your efforts this morning.
And Jeff?
No, sir. Thank you. Good to have you back again, Chip. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be back.
It's good to survive the background check, is what he said. Okay. We've already approved compensation for ourselves. We've approved the minutes from our Monday hearings. Susan, anything else to come before us?
No, I have nothing.
Okay.
I'm not sure, Mr. Chair, if you read the case that was continued or not into the.
I need to do that. And then noting that our March 2nd date we vacated that date and we moved our hearings to the 8th instead. And yes, thank you for reminding me. Case number 21-0009, which is a Columbus Building Department matter dealing with the premises located at 1130 East Main Street here in Columbus, has been continued. Someone may need to mute. Someone needs to mute. Okay, has been continued till March 30th of this year. Hearing from Susan that there's no new business to come before the board, and having done everything else on our agenda, subject to the fact that our next hearing publicly will be March 8th, 2021 at 8:30, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Okay, motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we stand adjourned, and I noticed that Sam's back with us for the first time. It's been, I think he was absent about the same period of time you were, Chip. If that corresponds or not. Maybe it was maybe the appointment was a tag team on something. But anyway, all right. Enjoy your day. Enjoy the rest of the week. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Have a good day, all.
Everybody.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, bye.